All right, we are back with another special edition for you. We are celebrating the amazing album by the Ramones. It is their ninth studio album. We're joined by the one and only, the mega tour road manager extraordinaire. It is Monte A. Melnick. Monte,
Hey, oh, let's go.
let's do it. Gabba gabba hey. My
Yeah.
gosh. Yeah, I always forget. Were you the tour manager or the road manager? And what
Well,
is the
I started,
difference?
I started off as doing sound for them first,
Okay.
initially, then working on the road, doing all sorts of roadie stuff. Then working up to sort of road manager, tour manager. Road manager, bigger organizations, is a road manager, tour manager, production manager, all sorts of different managers. Uh, I was basically doing everything in the early years. I mean, Mickey was there too, and Arturo in the beginning
Yeah.
years, and I worked my way up. Doing sound for them first in performance studios, and then they started getting jobs outside, and I worked. What they said, come with us and work with us on the road, and I started doing sound, and and then helping out doing everything. So working my way up in the chain, learning the whole what it takes to be on the road with roadies and equipment and all that. So a road manager basically is with the band, with the crew all the time, and the bigger
Okay.
and
Kind
the
of
bigger,
overseeing the moving parts, the
yeah,
gear, the setup.
yeah, and a tour manager above that. Basically, I
They're
was,
dealing with like the promoter, the booking
yeah,
agency,
yeah,
all
right,
that.
right, exactly like
Okay.
that. But in the beginning, I was doing everything.
Yeah, no, I've interviewed the members of the police many times, and it was four guys on the road. Sting, Stuart Copeland, Andy Summers, and then the fourth guy was like the driver, the road manager, the merch guy, the security. I mean, you wear a lot of hats until there's more availability to have another hat involved.
True.
So we are celebrating the ninth album. Of course, it came out May 19th, 86. We are celebrating the anniversary, coming up towards 40 years. My gosh. Intergalactic Studios in New York City, and I see the mention of Polar Studios in Stockholm. That's ABBA's studio, right?
Yeah, that's interesting. Jean Beauvoir, who produced the album,
Yes.
I guess was good friends with them over there and decided to bring Joey. I went with Joey in the middle of freaking winter in
Oh my
Sweden, which was
gosh.
a little rough, When we went to Polar Studios, it was nice to being there, being in a studio that ABBA was was their studios.
So he was doing vocals there.
Yeah, he did the vocals over there.
Wow. Well, you would imagine ABBA would have the best mics, the best board preamps, everything, necessary for a great vocal. That's amazing. Jean Beauvoir, of course, originally we knew him as the Plasmatics, but came into his own. Little Steven, Disciples of Soul. He's written and worked with Kiss. What I would assume he, formed a relationship with the band through the Plasmatics days. Was there a certain band member he was closest to?
Well, I think Joey probably.
Okay, so he kind of aligned
I
with
think
Joey.
I think he was picked by the record company to do the album.
Okay. Seymour Stein may have had
Yeah,
something to do with it.
yeah, yeah. And they were always looking after the first couple of albums. They was always looking for someone to get that hit out, and
Yeah.
to get them on the radio. And so I guess Sire felt that he could do it. He's a great person, really wonderful, wonderful guy.
Yeah, I've interviewed him many times. He looks the same, got the giant white mohawk.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a force of nature. He lives down in Florida now and still involved with little Steven. So that's another force of nature, Bruce and Steven.
Oh boy, yeah.
My gosh. So now I understand that nothing new. There's obviously tension within the band, Joey and Johnny, and things like My Brain is Hanging Upside Down, Bonzo Goes to Bitburg, criticizing Ronald Reagan. That didn't go over too well with Johnny.
Well, yeah, because Johnny was a huge Ronald Reagan fan, loved Ronald Reagan. Well, I think he was his favorite president. Him and Ronald Reagan and Nixon was Johnny's favorite presidents. And Johnny didn't like the name of the song "Bonzo Goes to Bitburg," but he wanted he changed had a change not well put in my brain is hanging
Parentheses.
upside
Yeah.
down. Yeah, but he did the song. I mean, and it was on. He played it live too, and they recorded the song. But he wasn't happy about the whole thing basically, and so he had that kind of name change done on it.
Yeah. Well, there was growing tension between Joey and Johnny, and I understand, you know, Joey had another breakup with his girlfriend Angela around this time.
Yeah, yeah. That's I think he wrote that song "Mental Hell" about that. Kind
Yeah.
of that's why inspired him to write that song.
Mm.
Yeah.
So Dee Dee steps up, does understandably most of the writing on the record, besides various contributions.
Yeah, he did a lot of songs on that album there.
Well, Richie Ramone wrote the first track. Somebody put something in my drink,
Yeah, which
but
was
Dee Dee pretty much wrote everything except Mental Hell and Hair of the Dog that Joey wrote.
yeah, I think Didi and John Beauvoir was something to believe in.
Yeah, Sean's got credit on My Brain is Hanging Upside Down and on She Belongs to Me. So, um, what do you remember about the state of the band? You got Richie Ramone in the group now. Tommy stepped aside. Um, what do you most remember about going into this record?
Well, it was interesting that they had used Richie as a songwriter, you know, which is unusual to have someone else like that write the whole song and and perform, he was a it was a great song, by the way, Something in My Drink.
Yes.
And it was good to have him come in and in the band that fill in.
So
And it,
did he step up and say, "Hey guys, I got some ideas here," or was it just
yeah,
naturally during the process of writing?
yeah, he had some songs, and he was good friends with Joey, who
Okay.
kind of told him, you should, write some songs, and then I guess Joey had some influence in get him on the album and stuff like that. And there was like one of the first times to have, besides Tommy as a drummer writing songs, having Richie write a song for the Ramones, you know, solely by him, not co-written by one of the Ramones.
Yeah. And to this day, Richie is still out there playing Ramon songs, as is Marky. I know
Yeah, yeah,
CJ
Marky,
plays in the cover band and all that, but
yeah. CJ's with Gimme Gimmes,
yeah. So this
and
is
Marky basically is like full Ramones. If you ever go see him, he's like
yeah.
90
I guess Richie
90%.
mixed it up, some solo and some Ramones, but
Yeah,
Marky's the most traditional. If you want to go see the Ramones, including a member of the Ramones, it's Marky.
yeah, he's doing the whole Ramones stuff, and he's doing very well, by the way. He's the people would.
Yeah, I look at his set list. There's like 40 songs. Oh my God.
Yeah, and all, yeah, and he's doing very, drawing the crowds in all over the world. People just want to hear the Ramones with one of the original Ramones in it.
Yeah, it separates itself from the many tribute bands or cover bands, because you got a real member, and yeah, Marky waves that flag proudly and high worldwide, South America, Europe, and North
All over the
America.
place, everywhere,
Yeah,
everywhere. He's got,
Japan.
also got that, he's got the Sirius XM radio show also.
Wow, busy guy,
Yeah,
no
he's
doubt.
he's doing very good.
Yeah. So approximately how long did it take to record this album? As far as the intergalactic sessions, do you remember kind of how many days it took?
No, I think it was December to January, the end of December to January, and a couple of weeks.
Okay.
They do things fast, you know.
Right. So the songs were pretty much written prior, as always. There's not a lot of creating per se from scratch in the studio.
I think of some of the Dee Dee songs were written in the studio,
Okay.
you know, on spur of the moment type stuff.
Dee Dee was
Like,
very spontaneous. He would just
oh
start
my God.
banging on the
Yeah.
bass and rapping his
Yeah.
vocal out.
You know, some of the songs like Freak of Nature and Animal Boy and all that, that's Dee Dee like hardcore, you know.
Mm. Let's talk about the concept, Animal Boy. Obviously, the Ramones have always favored the freaks, the pinheads, all the crazy people. Was Animal Boy kind of a nod to maybe something one might see at the freak show, at the circus?
Yeah, it was their little roundabout way of
Half
getting to that area.
half boy, half ape,
Yeah,
the bearded lady, all
yeah.
those.
I mean, you know, Pinhead is written because they we had a day off in Cleveland, and we went to the movies to see the movie Freaks,
Yeah,
1932 Todd Browning movie, which had the real freaks in it. They were real
right.
pinheads and animal boys and stuff like that,
Yeah.
and they got so inspired by that movie that they wrote Pinhead. It was
Wow.
like in the movie, this gobble gobble, we accept you. They took that and put a gobble gobble, we accept you, gobble gobble, we accept you're one of us. So they were totally inspired. And you know, then on and on they're creating and all the other songs about freaks. They're just, you know, in a funny way they were talking. That's the Ramones. They talk about freaks in a funny way, basically, you know.
Yeah. Endearingly, they were freaks themselves,
Yes.
Talk about who exactly would normally wear the pinhead mask on stage.
Yeah, it first started was the drum roadies. First, they had a cone head for a
Okay.
couple of times, and the drum roadie would put the cone head on and walk out. But during the filming of the movie Rock and Roll High School, Alan Arkish, the great director, had a pinhead mask made by one of the famous artists, you know,
Hollywood guys.
uh, guys that does, you know,
Yeah.
masks and things like that. And they got to keep that. And then the drum roadie was responsible for wearing that and bringing the sign out to Joey, which was always the last song, eventually the last song of the set.
Oh, wow.
Uh, it's and the funny thing about that is that the people wanted to do it. They, you know, celebrities came to them and said, "Hey, let me go put the pinhead mask on." And Eddie Vedder did it, and Rant guy from Rancid, Lars, and Rob Zombie, and they all wanted to put the pinhead on and walk out on stage. You know, it became like a thing. Actually, one time, the drum roadie at the end of the set, we had some fans. He cut his hand badly, so I was there, and I put the pinhead on. I went out once to did the pinhead. Boy, that mask stunk, boy. I'll tell you that. I
Oh, my
said I'm never
God.
doing that again.
You defumigate that thing.
Yeah, so I was a pinhead once too, but that was always the drum roadies.
Okay.
And like Mitch Keller, one of the great roadies that we had, drum roadies, he got that dress made because they were also inspired by Zippy the Pinhead.
Right.
And he made a dress like that, so the pinhead would come out with the dress and the sign and the mask.
Well, as I've told you, I was at that final Ramon show at the Palace, right across the
Ah,
street from the Hollywood Capitol Records Tower. Do you
yeah.
remember who wore the pinhead mask at that all-star show? Because everybody was there. Eddie Vedder and Rob
You know, I
Zombie and
can't.
Henry Rollins and
Well, a lot of them made personal, you know, performance with the band and on
right.
songs. So I'm not sure. I can't remember. I can't remember who did that.
You would think it'd be a celebrity. They were all there. Tim
Most,
Armstrong, Rancid, everybody
yeah,
was there.
but I said most of those celebrities did, you know, Eddie Vedder and
Yeah.
Ransom.
No, I know they
They went
performed.
on stage. Yeah, I don't. I'm not sure who did the Pinhead at that time.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Might have to pose that trivia question to the masses, but it would have to be
Well,
somebody involved in the production
that's
that would
it.
actually
Yeah,
know.
that's the thing. They
Yeah,
have to.
wasn't like they pulled the mask off and
No, they don't. They wouldn't do that.
showed themselves.
They never did that.
We'll talk about the making of this album cover because I know initially the thought was, well, we'll get a monkey from the Bronx Zoo.
Well, initially, George LeBeau is a great photographer, a good friend of mine. He shot a lot of album covers, and then when he came about to do this, he went to he approached the Bronx Zoo and said, "I want to shoot in front of a monkey cage with a chimpanzee," and they said, "No, no, no." So he built a cage in his studio there, and he got Zippy the Pinhead. Funny, his name's Zippy from the David Letterman show, who was the monkey cam. I don't know if you remember the David Letterman show, and then
Oh, sure.
he had a monkey can running around with
Uh-huh.
it. So he got that chimp to do the photo shoot, and then the gorilla in the background there's Legs McNeil.
Mm.
They got
And
Legs
the,
McNeil
and
to do
those
the
were just
gorilla.
jail bars set up in like a photo studio.
Yeah, he set up a whole he built a little cage like that.
So you got a real chimp in front of the gorilla in the background.
Yeah, Richie's holding a chimp, which the chimp was a bit temperamental at the time.
Is that right?
Yeah, he wasn't
It didn't want to stay still for the photo.
no, no.
Any other stories? Anything happened that you remember at the photo shoot?
No, just that the chimp was very unruly, and the chimp, the handler of the chimp, he was like in Richie's hand, and I wasn't obeying wasn't staying still. So the handler came over and slapped the chimp, and the chimp stopped. He actually hit the chimp there,
Oh man,
to keep him in line, stuff
chimp
like that.
brutality on the
Yeah,
set.
right, exactly. And but it was a good photo shoot. The funny thing about the Ramones on photo shoots, they never really liked to stay very long on photo shoots. They just couldn't handle doing things over and over and over again. So George was good at that. That's why they used George DeBose, because he would shoot fast, a couple of rolls fast, fast, fast. They
Yeah,
liked that a lot. So they kept on using them on a lot of the covers, some of the great Ramones covers.
it's kind of like in the studio. You want to get that first or second take. You don't want to do the 19th or 27th take.
Exactly.
Keep the spirit alive. Well, of course, the album comes out, spawned 4 singles. The Bonzo track goes to Bitburg. First one, somebody put something in my drink. Second one, crummy stuff. Third, and something to believe in. Fourth. So um, there was on the video for something to believe in. There was a parody
Oh.
of the Live Aid show in Hands Across America.
Yeah, Hands Across America. So they made it Ramones
Oh,
Aid, and Hands
okay.
Across Your Face. Good old Ramones funny comedy there. You know what I mean? And a lot of famous people were in that. I got a list here. Let's say
I see
X,
that. X.
B-52s, Weird
Yeah.
Al, Spinal Tap, Ted Nugent, Circle Jerks, Tony Basil, Rodney Bingenheimer, Holly Beth Vinson, Penn and Teller, Africa Mabata, and I'm in it
Wow. And all,
briefly.
all these people were there in the studio, or was it kind of cobbled together from
It was cobbled
various?
together. There was
Yeah.
some studio shots where they got
Okay.
lookalikes from the original Live Aid thing, when they had all the
Okay.
famous people in the studio. So there's a studio shot of all these imitators,
We are the
Michael
world type
Jackson and
thing.
yeah, real of the world type things. And then they shot a lot of stuff outside and different places where they can get the people. So if you look carefully, there's a quick shot of me. I'm handcuffed to a policeman
Oh
quickly
wow.
in the shot. So I'm in the video there.
And do you remember who came up with that concept for this video?
I can't remember really. That I can't remember.
I know it said the video was described by author Everett True. to be reassuringly foolish, a welcome return to the Ramones sense of humor. So somebody had the idea to kind of, put a little dig in. There were a lot of charities. Do they know it's Christmas? Live Aid, my gosh, We Are the World, um, all that, Hands Across America. It was kind of that era, mid 80s.
Yeah, they want to take a little poke at all that stuff, you know?
Mm. Now, Robert Christgau gave it a B plus. Considered She Belongs to Me, Crummy Stuff to be defensive sounding, something to believe in, an anthem. Um, David Frick gave it a thumbs up, claimed that it rivaled Leave Home or Rocket to Russia. But overall, the album did okay. It was not one of their strongest sellers, or at least chart wise.
Well, yeah, I'll tell you, Ramones never were heavy chart-wise sellers, period. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So it went
I
over
think,
better with the fans than maybe the critics or the industry. Let's put it that
yeah,
way.
that's a problem with the Ramones because that's why they kept on searching for different producers over the years, you know, to get that the hit on the radio, which would boost them up into charts, you know. I think the highest charting album they had was End of the Century. I think they went to 44 or something like that, you know. But the other ones were, you know, they got on the charts, but not very high, you know. That's why they kept on searching different producers, different producers. That maybe he'll get on the radio, get them on the radio. Her, you know.
Well, that's crazy because today their biggest, most repeated song is "I Want to Be Sedated,"
Yeah, that just went platinum.
and didn't Tommy produce that?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, that was Road to Ruin. So it's
Yeah.
crazy. They're looking for all these outside producers to give them a hit, and Tommy and Ed Stasium produced that one.
Well, yeah, finally, you know, over the years after the for Ramones, they all passed away and stuff, and finally they started to get airplay and onto radio, onto soundtracks and commercials. I think my story on this is that basically, you know, all the kids were listening to the Ramones early on. And when they grew up, finally, after the Ramones retired, they got into positions where they could do something like put them in a commercial or get them on the radio more, or the movie soundtracks. So that's why the Ramones really built up after they retired.
Mm. Yeah, it had to be frustrating from the inside, knowing the band, saw their influence, but didn't necessarily see the compensation that would be likely if you had some mega hits and you were touring, bigger. Now, I understand there was debate, do we go in a van and stay in the hotel, or do we go on the tour bus and sleep on the bus? I know a lot of people can't get a good night's sleep on a rolling bus, especially with people talking and the bumps in the road. Talk about that dichotomy of, everybody aspires to a tour bus, but maybe
Well,
the van is better, and we just sleep in hotel rooms.
well, if it's in my book, I we did have a few tour buses. The problem with the tour buses, they're very expensive, and you gotta to make up for the expense, you gotta sleep on it sometimes, and you know you can't have a lot of hotels.
Yeah, it's one or the other.
So
You can't have
we
both. You
tried
can't.
it out a few times, and that's a couple of buses, and it just didn't. It was very expensive. So what they did is in the United States, basically, they figured that they do sections of the country, like they go to California, they fly out there, they have the van driven out there, and then we do like 2 weeks up and down the coast in the van,
Uh
basically.
huh.
You know what I mean? And then come back, come do whatever we had to do in New York, and then do the Midwest for a couple of weeks. So it was easier just to go in a van, quick, and have hotels, which because as I said, the tour bus was very expensive.
Yeah,
So that's how they developed the van tour.
there's limitations on the bus. You can't go number two in the commode. You can't get a real shower on a tour bus.
Yeah.
You're in
Also,
each other's hair the whole night and day.
yeah, it's it's good and it's bad. I mean, some of the tour buses are amazingly comfortable though. When
Yeah,
you want to
it's
spend a
kind
lot
of
of
like a
money on it.
house on wheels. You see
Yeah.
some of these people's buses.
But as I said, that they couldn't afford it. Actually, the last tour, the Lollapalooza tour, since the crew had to get there early and stay late and go to the next, it was a lot of big driving and stuff. So they had a tour bus at the Lollapalooza tour, but we did it in a van. And it was funny because we pull up to the festival site, the tour bus would come in, and the crew would get out, and the Ramones would pull up in a van. Everybody's like laughing and stuff.
Yeah, to each their own. It wasn't like you guys didn't have a lot of experience. And I know you know this. How many shows did the Ramones do?
2,263.
Oh God. Yeah, bands these days would
And I list them all in the back of my book, by the way. If you're interested in
on the
seeing
road with the
19,
Ramones, the red edition
yeah, the bonus edition. You say,
on
hey, where's
Amazon. Yeah.
yeah, Amazon worldwide. But you go, hey, 89, where was that? I see, go look in the back and you can see the date and where we played.
So you kept a diary?
Yeah, well, Johnny initially kept it. I kept it. I had all my calendars and stuff too. But Johnny initially wrote every single show down. And when there was a certain point where it stopped because in Everett True's book, he lists it. I picked up from there with my calendar. So
Okay.
I had all the dates too. But Johnny wrote them all down initially.
Well, the band was definitely a machine. It's no question that you pioneered so much between the music, the DIY attitude, Arturo who made the design and handled the merch. I mean, it was a self-contained operation that was kind of the blueprint. Here comes the Warp Tour and all this later. Everybody was kind of following the Ramones' lead on how to do it.
Yeah, Arturo was great. He was from the beginning. Loved the Ramones. Was there from the beginning. And in fact,
Does
if
he
he was
get
still
enough
around,
credit, or is he super underrated?
no, he gets some credit, but he could be talked about more. I mean, he did. He was such a
He
talented
was
person.
almost like a member of the band, right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Because in the early years, he hung out with the band. He knew the band from the early years in the performance studios and all that before all the touring and stuff. And he was a great artist and terrific lighting director and artistic director for the band. And if he was still around, I mean, myself and Arturo were the only people there from the beginning of the Ramones to the end of the Ramones. Unfortunately, he passed away. So I'm kind of like the last person that was there from the beginning to the end.
Well, it makes a difference, rather than just some, lighting guy that comes in and tries to keep up. He knew those songs. He knew the nuances, the rhythms, the high points,
Yeah, and being an
makes a
artist,
difference.
yeah, being an artist, he infused a lot of red, white, and blue lights and white lights and stuff, like to give it like an American feel to the whole thing. That's and using the logo, he developed the logo, which is an amazing story
Yeah.
on that.
And
They were one
that's a
day,
take on the US presidential seal.
yeah, it's a president. Then one day they were in Washington D.C. early on, and Arturo saw the presidential seal and said, "Hey, I can do." He did something with it. And like the Eagles holding a baseball bat, which is like American.
Yeah.
And Johnny was a baseball fan, a big Yankees fan. If you look at the cover of my book, Johnny's wearing a Yankees T-shirt in the
Wow.
cartoon that John Holmstrom did for me. The great John Holmstrom did a terrific job on the cover. And the Eagles holding instead of olive branch he's holding like apple branch, apple American.
Uh-huh.
And the wonderful part about Arturo is circular, all the Ramones names are in circular. So when one person left, the other they just plug and play into the logo.
Right. Put a
And then
CJ or a Richie or a Markey in there.
yeah, and the Eagles holding I think it was he flew with Bersunum from this Great Seal that he put. First it was Look Out Below in the early Eagles, and then Hey Ho, Let's Go, and then later Eagle, and it's holding the banner in the Eagle's mouth, you know. So Artel did a great job. Being a great artist, his lighting show was terrific, and he got involved in the t-shirts early on. And that's how he got involved with the band to take him on the road. They couldn't afford in the early years. They couldn't afford to take him on the road. So they said, print up some t-shirts, just sell them and it'll pay the way, you know? And that's how he got involved with the t-shirts.
That's
And
amazing.
yeah, because he had a loft and he could print some shirts and hang them up on pipes in the loft, bring them on the road, sell them. And that became a big thing. Meat and potatoes, touring and selling merchandise was a big thing for the Ramones because they weren't selling a huge amount of albums and stuff like that.
Sure.
And he got involved in the merchandising and with the t-shirts. And I wish I got a piece of that. Boy,
Yeah, that's lived
that's a big
on
thing.
after the ban. Now,
You know,
let me ask you, did
yeah.
did the Ramones always keep the merch in-house or did you go
Yes.
later? Okay, so you didn't go
Well,
with
yeah. They'll
Brokem or Great Southern or one of those big
Well,
merch
initially
companies?
Arturo did all the t-shirt printing. Then later on, they had the companies print the t-shirts, you know, because
Okay.
they had great volumes. The t-shirts
Right.
later on. He
They
went
would
with a
drop ship boxes to the venues
yeah,
and stuff.
yeah, stuff like that. And but initially it was all Arturo.
Okay. Now, I understand that Richie Ramone, who wrote somebody put something in my drink, stated he came up with the lyrics after he was dating Frankie Valli's daughter and mistakenly drank something in a nightclub. Do you, do you remember the Frankie Valli daughter?
No, I mean
Okay,
that was before he was around the Ramones,
right.
basically.
But I guess he just came in with the song, but that's where it came from. But I also heard that Animal Boy and Eight Man Hop were somewhat similar or a spinoff of Cretin Hop from Rocket to Russia in a way. You know, kind
Yeah,
of that.
that's like and Freak of Nature. Yeah, that's Dee Dee's hardcore stuff there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And Love Kills, a little nod to Sid and Nancy.
Yeah,
Um,
that he wrote that to be in the movie, but they never used it in the movie. I think it would have made a better song in the movie, you know,
mm,
in that movie, the about Sid and Nancy, you
right.
know.
The Alex Cox movie.
Yeah, funny he talks about heroin and stuff and killing, and that's how he died, basically. Poor Dee Dee.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate. I know, the tale of Dee Dee Ramone, is a sad one. He was such an instrumental part of the band with the writing and the energy and his count off and all of that. And so a small little, marker in the Hollywood Forever cemetery. Um,
Well, it's actually a nice tombstone he has there.
okay,
Black, black tombstone, which people visit. Not too far from the Johnny Ramone statue. Johnny's not really buried there.
right.
He had some of his ashes kind of scattered a little bit there, but most of his ashes are up at his Johnny Ramone and Linda Ramone Ranch, that she calls it now, house up in the hills in L.A.
Okay.
But Dee Dee's actually buried there, and the guy from Soundgarden's actually buried next to what's
Yeah,
his name
Chris
now?
Cornell
He's
is
actually buried by the statue of Johnny.
yeah, and you have the nice there's a pond. There's a pond right behind it.
Yes, yes,
Really nice. I was there for the ceremony for the unveiling of the Johnny statue and members of course, Pearl Jam and Red Hot Chili Peppers and Rob Zombie. They were all there.
yeah.
It's quite the scene. Um,
Well,
but
that cemetery is where Linda has her great tribute show
yeah,
every year,
I haven't I
and it's
haven't heard about that lately. I don't know if she still does it every year, and I just didn't
yeah, it was last year. I
hear
was there
about.
last
Okay,
year. Yeah,
okay,
she's been doing it every year, basically. Probably have it
okay.
this year. I don't know, sometime in the summer later.
Yeah. Is it on a certain date to commemorate something?
No, no, it's just
Just
basically
just random, whatever works.
yeah, just
Okay.
it's not called a Johnny Ramone tribute show.
Yeah. Now, tell us, again, um, when Dee Dee left the band at one point, wanted to be a rapper. It's Dee Dee King. What was going on in his head? Was he just thinking that the music the band was playing was out of step and he wanted to step forward? Was he super frustrated with the band? What was going on in his
No,
mind?
well, initially he got into rap and wanted to do a rap album. That the band said, "Okay, why don't you do the rap album on your side, and you can do that and still be in the Ramones, you know?" But he took it like full blast, you know what I mean? And one day we were going to Washington D.C. and we're flying down there, and he shows up at the airport with a jumpsuit and gold chains. And Johnny said, "What are you doing? You know, you're in the Ramones. You know, you can't wear that when you're in the Ramones." Yeah, he just wanted to do his own thing. He's famously saying he was tired of being in the Ramones army, you know, and being told what to do and this and that and stuff like that. And he had his own thing with the rap thing. So that initially they figured they let him do his rap album, get it out of the system, and you know, still be in the Ramones. But they, you know, eventually got too much for him and he left. But the good thing about what happened was he, after he left, he still kept on writing for the Ramones, giving them songs, which was terrific. You know what I mean? So the later albums, actually, some of the stuff was written by Dee Dee still, you know? And then they got a young Dee Dee as CJ in the band. So, you know, because Dee Dee was kind of fading out there at the end, you know, he didn't want to, you know, be around. He was just not there altogether. Some of the later shows he was in, you know,
Right.
unfortunately.
Well, I remember he passed away in a small Hollywood apartment just up the street, kind of near, the Palace and the Hollywood Bowl and all that in that area up there. And it was just a sad, ending to,
Yeah, and
a life of creativity.
yeah, well, unfortunately, he was had his huge problems with drugs and alcohol and stuff. When he initially left the group, I figured he was going to be the first one to pass away, you know, but
Yeah.
he kept it together for a long, long time. And then he just had that one last time. He had to do that one last time, you know,
Oof.
and that got him.
Yeah.
He died the rock and roll life.
So the order of the passings, who passed first? Joey
Yeah.
and then Johnny?
Uh, no, I think Dee Dee, then Johnny,
Okay. And then
and then
Tommy.
Tommy.
Wow. How much time had passed from the Ramones' last show that Joey passed? What was the time frame on that?
I think Joey passed 2001, was it? To
Okay.
1990, the 1996 was the last show by the
Okay.
Ramones.
So maybe about 5 years.
Yeah, roughly.
Okay. Well, I know Joey had the solo album and all that, and of course, the band kept cranking. But we are celebrating the anniversary of Animal Boy, following the year halfway to Sanity came out. We'll be sure to celebrate that. Another great one, Daniel Ray and Intergalactic Studios comes back. But yeah, hats off to Richie and Marky and CJ for playing some of this music, keeping the spirit alive, and of course the celebrations every year there at Hollywood Forever Memorial with Johnny for Johnny with Linda, and of course the Joey Ramone tribute that just happened that Mickey oversees. And I know everybody's got books, and again, we want to celebrate and let everybody know Monte A. Melnick's got the book. It is on the road with the Ramones, the
Bonus
uh,
edition.
the bonus edition. So go grab that. And wow, I am loving all that we talk about, and we learn so much. And what better source? But we do have a question, and you may think if there was anybody on the road crew you can ask, who wore the pinhead mask at the Ramones final show? That's your homework assignment, Monty. So maybe maybe we could put an answer to that. Um, maybe nobody knows, but I have a feeling somebody Must know. But that was a great event. Palace Theater, the historic Palace Theater, right across from one of the most famous buildings in all of Los Angeles. That's the Capitol Records Tower. Looks like a stack of records, like 12 stories high.
Yeah, that's a
Uh,
great building.
yeah, quite the scene. It is an historical building. I don't know if you know, but the building was sold. It's still leased to Universal, who owns Capitol. But there's a reason why they can't bulldoze that building. You know, they'd like to put 500 condos, overpriced condos in that spot. And it's not because of the building. Do you know why?
Well, it's a landmark or
It's
something.
the studio. It's the studio in the basement where
Oh,
Frank Sinatra and everybody started. And of course, everybody recorded there. Because that studio is a historical landmark, they can't touch anything above it.
wow. I
So,
would figure the building looks like a.
yeah, it is a historical building. But if you notice next time you're in LA, that you used to be able to come up the 101 freeway from downtown. First thing you saw on your left was that Capitol Tower. Now there's like three giant condo towers in front of it. You
Oh
can
boy.
still see it as you're coming from the valley, coming down south on the 101 past the Hollywood Bowl. But it's dissettling coming up the 101 and you can't see the Capitol building. It's a sign of the times. There's a lot of new buildings and structures. And of course, lots of memories with the Ramones at the Hollywood Palladium right down the block from that location.
Oh, it was not the Palladium. It was the.
No, it was at the Palace, but I'm saying I
Oh,
remember the famous show that
oh, the
Black
Fen,
Flag played with the
oh
Ramones.
yeah, yeah. With
There's the pictures with the riot squad out front with the nightsticks.
that's when they were having troubles with the punk audiences and stuff in the streets and stuff, and they so they brought out the police.
Yeah, which only agitate the punks and cause skirmishes. I was there famously at the Black Flag and DOA show at the Whiskey. There were two shows, and after the first show, we all come outside, and right across the street is a line of about 30 riot squad cops with the billy clubs and the helmets on. And all it took
Huh.
was one bottle being chucked in their direction, and they all came running across the street clubbing punks. So the sec it only stands to note that there was no second show that night. They shut down Sunset, and the paddy wagons came out, and there was a lot of punks with cracked craniums. So
Yeah, well,
yeah,
luckily that when the Ramones played that show, that it was at the end of the show, it was over, and then so we didn't have to shut that show down at
yeah,
all.
yeah.
I was lucky.
I'm sure you were protected on the inside, but we're getting reports that there's a lot of activity going on out in the parking lot
Yeah,
and the
yeah,
streets of
absolutely.
Argyle and Sunset. Well, Monty, we can't thank you enough. Always great to talk to you. Look forward to continuing to celebrate all these amazing anniversaries as only we can with the one and only Monte A. Melnick. Go get his book. Until we talk again, Monty, please keep rocking. And as we say, hey ho, let's go.
Or gabba gabba hey to all the Ramones fans out there.